Hi, I'm Vincenzo Coya, and welcome to Stat 545, the video series designed to help you write a clean and modern data analysis. So I need to talk to you about writing reports, because I have a feeling you might be putting way too much manual effort into it, probably more than you even realize. Instead, let's get you set up with writing dynamic reports, reports that actually give your code some legs and, accommodate the fact that your analysis never seems to stop changing. So we have 3 practices for you today that'll help you get set up with dynamic reports, specifically using RStudio. The first practice is to write your text in Markdown. Now, you might be familiar with text editors like Microsoft Word and Google Docs, and I like to think of these as being like painting, because they place your document in front of you like a canvas, and you're then able to decorate this canvas using text, graphs, and tables. Now, this might be useful if you're making a birthday pamphlet for a best friend, but let's face it, painting a data analysis onto a document is not as important as the data analysis itself. The alternative is to write what's basically a blueprint for your document, and then let your computer process that blueprint into a nicely formatted document. To make one of these blueprints, write everything in the form of plain, unformatted text, and then interlace this text with instructions on how to format your text. Now, these formatting instructions take the form of what's called a markup language, and we recommend using a markup language called Markdown because it's simple and flexible and found just about everywhere on the web these days. And in Stat 545, as you could probably guess, we'll be writing Markdown documents using RStudio. For example, with Markdown, you can use hashes to specify titles, underscores to bold text, and much more. Optionally, you can also specify settings for the entire document in what's called a YAML header. Whenever you want to generate your fully rendered document, in RStudio, just click on the Preview button. By default, a Markdown document renders into an HTML file, which is what you're used to seeing when you browse a website. Now, you might not be used to producing HTML files, but the reality is that most of the reading we do these days is through a web browser. But if you do insist on splitting your work onto separate pieces of paper, then you can still go ahead and choose PDF as your file output. Or do both, because lucky for you, you've written your work in Markdown and you could choose one way or the other. The second practice is don't modify your output. Now that you're writing in Markdown, you'll have 2 versions of your work, the blueprint and the rendered document. The rendered document is only meant for reading, don't go tinkering with it. I can promise you that one day you'll need to rebuild from your blueprint, and if you've been tinkering with the output, all those changes are going to be entirely replaced by the newly incoming document. The third practice is to interlace your code and text. In the first episode, I introduced writing code for a data analysis. But in addition to writing code, you should also probably write out your logic behind the code, as well as anything that will just help a reader understand what's going on. As it turns out, you don't have to actually keep your discussion separate from your R code. You can actually interlace the 2 together and have a program called Knitter render that document into either an HTML or a PDF file, for example. The blueprint for a document like this can be made by working in an R Markdown document. Here, R code gets placed into what are called code chunks. You can also specify options for each code chunk. You can write your discussion outside of the code chunks where Knitter is expecting to see Markdown. Whenever you want to generate your fully rendered document, simply click on the Knit button in RStudio. Well, hopefully you now feel empowered to write your analysis instead of paint your analysis. To summarize, keep 3 practices in mind. Write in Markdown, don't modify the output, and interlace your code and text. Join us next class where we discuss data wrangling with dplyr. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you can stay up to date with more data analysis goodies.